Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a Hurricane Outlook and discussion recorded on June 20th, 2023, recorded on 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including Tropical Storm Bret, located in the Atlantic Main Development Region. Is it going to become a hurricane, and when and where is it expected to move into the Caribbean? And we're talking about another storm potentially behind that, so let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this morning, we notice we have a few systems out there to monitor today. We have Tropical Storm Bret, which has become a little less organized, I should say, and we'll talk about why, but this has become a little less organized this morning. But this is still expected to intensify to near hurricane intensity so far as it nears the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. We're also watching Invest Area 93L now with a high chance of development as this system lifts off towards the north and west. And another tropical wave that will be emerging off the coast of Africa within the next day or two. And this will also have to be monitored for additional development as this will find itself in within a pretty favorable environment within the next about 5 to 6 days. Looking here at Tropical Storm Bret this morning, we'll go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. We notice that the system has become a lot less organized today. First of all, this is our low-level center right here, and you kind of notice that there's not a whole lot of convection near to this system. In fact, the mid-level circulation is still kind of embedded back in here within the deeper part of the convection. So not only has the system lost convection during the day today, but it's also now outrunning the convection. You can see that low-level vortex in here. We'll zoom in a bit more. You notice that low-level vortex just spinning around in there as it heads off towards the west at about 20 to 25 miles per hour. So it's kind of leaving behind this initial vortex or the mid-level spin here, which is a very big problem. Looking at the latest track forecast for Tropical Storm Bret, this is no longer expected to become a hurricane, but is still expected to intensify as it nears the Lesser Antilles, generally north of Barbados, on late Thursday night into early Friday morning. So the maximum intensity now is 65 miles per hour here at this forecast point, late Thursday night into very early Friday morning. And then this is expected to cross into the Caribbean, generally staying well to the south of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola and Haiti, and well to the south of Jamaica. So this actually gets a little bit more closer down here towards the northern coast of South America over the next couple of days. This forecast point is valid for 8 a.m. on Saturday, and it could realistically be a little bit higher than that. Or a little bit faster than that, rather, as we're expected to see the storm basically rapidly losing its intensity as we progress throughout the next couple of days. So the last forecast point here has this at 50 miles per hour. It should be 50 instead of 60. But irregardless, that this is expected to become a remnant low pressure system within the next 5 days, meaning it will eventually dissipate out here in the Caribbean and reformation of the storm is not expected. I want to go ahead and talk about all those details right now. So we're looking here at the upper level wind environment for our storm, Tropical Storm Bret. And one might think, if you've kind of noticed, on our channel and watched it for some time, you might think that this is a fairly good environment for our storm to work with. You've got a fairly healthy upper level anticyclonic flow aloft, and that should help to lead to a storm intensifying, right? Well, yes, in a theoretical sense, but we need to look at what's going on in the mid-levels. And for that, we'll look at the GFS vortex to average sounding, and we notice that just aloft here at the surface, you've got 10 knot winds here roughly at the surface, but just aloft in the lower part of the troposphere and kind of the middle part as well, you've got winds that are screaming at 20 knots, 15 to 20 knots through here. And so this is a relatively unfavorable pattern for tropical cyclones because the upper level winds or the mid-level and somewhat upper level environment is faster than the flow at the surface. And because of that, you're actually tilting the vortex over onto its side and stretching those thunderstorms away from the center of circulation. And that's what we saw in the visible satellite imagery. So the system is not only battling that, But we notice the environment is fairly dry too. It's not your moist tropical air mass in a relative sense that you would expect to see within a tropical cyclone environment. And because of that, the shear is now importing dry air into the system. It's easier to get dry air into a tilted sheared vortex than it is a coherent, resilient system that is much stronger. So now you've got vertical stability that is a lot less aloft, and because of that, you're allowing this dry air to get entrained into the storm. And not only that, but thunderstorms that develop in this environment also are bringing down convective downdrafts that now cool and dry the low levels. So it's kind of just this mass response and a very negative feedback loop that's occurring for the storm. So how is that going to affect the track? Let's go ahead and look at that. So overall, the track forecast has become in a lot better agreement today that we're going to see a storm that slides north of Barbados. So for our friends down here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Tobago, and Guyana, everything is going to be fine for those areas. There might be some heavy rainfall, especially the further north you get towards St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There might be some heavier rain down near Trinidad and Tobago, but overall, this storm is not expected to be coming anywhere close enough to bring significant impacts to the area, meaning no significant wind, and also the chance for flooding is gone down because the storm is going to be sliding further towards your north. However, there will be some heavy rainfall in these areas that can lead to localized flooding in spots, especially with any heavier convective bands. Irregardless, the storm is expected to take a track north of Barbados and then move into the Caribbean, generally along this path, and staying to the south of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica. And the latest GFS ensembles, they are a little bit further north. The GFS ensembles generally take a track north of Barbados, a little bit closer towards the central part of the island chain, and some of the members do get it pretty close there to the southern part then of Jamaica, the kind of the southeast part. So on this forecast trajectory, there would be some impacts to portions of the Dominican Republic, mainly in terms of just some heavier rainfall from time to time. I'm not seeing anything significant. Jamaica too could, use some rainfall as well. So some of these areas will be impacted by some heavier rain, but nothing significant at this given time. The intensity of the storm isn't really going to change much for the next several days. The latest HVAS forecast here continues to show a cyclone that struggles for the next several days. Maybe some intensification and some windows there for intensification during the diurnal maximum period in the overnight. But generally speaking, the wind shear in the mid-levels is going to just be too persistent and too strong. And within several days from now, you start to have more westerly winds encroach on our storm, and that's going to only help to further weaken the storm. And then the system moves into the Caribbean, where there's going to be fairly strong shear from an upper level high centered over the western part of the Caribbean that's pumping in a lot of shear on the back side of the storm. And so this is going to be a very unfavorable pattern for a storm to intensify and hold together. So this storm is expected to then just weaken and follow the low-level trades, kind of just drifting around some here, where I don't think we're going to have to watch for additional development of the system. It just does not look likely that there will be any incipient vortex to really survive this trajectory through this very hostile conditions. So impacts beyond the Caribbean, I don't think are going to happen. So when we talk about impacts to the island chain, what can you expect? Well, the tropical cyclone impact risk has been increased to a minor threat, mainly for really Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, northward through the central part of the island chain, portions of the USVI, southern Puerto Rico, and also portions of southern Dominican Republic, with a limited threat surrounding that. So you can see again where we're kind of monitoring right now. Barbados, generally speaking, the storm is expected to take a track something like this and relatively stay within the central part of the Eastern Caribbean for now. And again, beyond that point, I think the vortex is not going to survive the shear across this area, so it will likely weaken and just dissipate into a remnant low within the next 5 or 6 days. This is a fairly moderate confidence forecast. We're trending upwards now on the forecast confidence. So for that reason, we have some fairly good confidence that, again, this will bring some heavier rainfall. You may experience some flooding, gusty winds, especially if the storm intensifies or has one of those intensification pulse cycles as the system is moving through some of the island chains here. You may encounter those winds up to 60, 65 miles per hour with some heavier rainfall and the potential for flooding. But in terms of any hurricane-specific impacts, I don't think this is going to be a hurricane moving through the island chain. And I've kind of been saying it all along. This just does not seem and feel like a very powerful system to move through here. So that's definitely some good news. It will bring some much-needed heavier rainfall to some of these locations that have been begging and pleading for the rainfall over the last while. So that is certainly some good news. Maybe some wind, but again, nothing significant, nothing that anybody can't handle here, especially given that everybody is hurricane ready, or at least I sure hope so. So that is the impacts from this system to the island chain. In terms of our next system, we are monitoring Invest Area 93L that is currently located to the south and east of Tropical Storm Bret over here. The storm is expected to become a tropical depression or storm within the next couple of days, and very well might become a hurricane out here in the open tropical waters. This system currently is not really expected to impact land as much. If we actually look here at some of the forecast models for our storm, we notice that generally most of the models continue to make this storm turn out and away from land at this point and not really affect any part of the island chain. So that is certainly some good news. Of course, we'll be monitoring this storm as we progress throughout the next couple of days. And this does have a high chance for development with an 80% over the next couple of days. But again, I don't think this is going to run into the island chain at all. In fact, I think it is going to try to become a storm and then get sheared apart once it kind of gets up here in the higher latitudes, as there's still going to be a lot of shear in this area. So not really watching this storm too much, but it does need to be monitored, especially for any trends that happen. And they'll be watching another tropical wave emerging off the coast of Africa. Again, this is still several days away from being any potential threat. And National Hurricane Center has not tagged this, but there is some growing model support for the wave behind it as well. So we'll continue to monitor everything there. All right. So that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon, and I will be talking to you guys again later this evening. So, of course, I am Mike O'Malley. God bless. Take care. I'll talk to you guys again some more this evening.